A gentle glow from the computer screen washes over the dark desk, colors flickering in rapid motion. The monitor roars in self-defense of the growing heat. The ceiling fan lays mockingly silent in the stifling air. Reclining in his seat, Dream's hands is tilted back to watch the wooden slats for the slightest tremor. Betrayal. Beads of sweat collect near his hairline. He tugs absently on the sticky plastic of his headphones, where they rest around his neck. The small light on the exterior blinks green. "Dream?" he hears George say faintly. "Wait, did he leave?" Sapnap asks. "It says he's on the call still." George's voice slowly grows closer. Dream begins to unattach his eyes from the fan. "Dream?" The concern in his voice makes Dream sit up. He pushes his headphones back on and wipes his face. Yes. Hello, sorry, I zoned out for a sec." He blinks to register what's on his screen, seeing green grass blocks and Sapnap's avatar crouching in front of him. "Shoot, did you end the stream?" "No, but I'm about to. Couldn't end it without you saying bye," George says. The small considerable act was enough to bloom a warmth in Dream's chest. He smiles. "Oh, alright. Bye, stream." "Bye," Sapnap yells. George waves to the camera. "Bye, you guys. Thank you so much. Also pray for Dream's air conditioning. And my broken fan," Dream adds. "Bye-bye," George repeats, then disappears from Dream's view. This stream has ended. A familiar feeling creeps into Dream's chest whenever that message appears post-stream. Disappointment clouded with confusion. Today, it is accompanied by trickles of regret. He frowns. "Sorry I spent so much of your stream complaining about the weather," he says, clicking back to the server. Sapnap has placed an oak sign before him that reads, "Wee wah, Dream can't take the heat." He rolls his eyes and breaks it. "It's fine. I just feel bad for you," George says. His avatar bounds over and starts placing doors on the ground. "Any idea when it will be fixed?" "Soon, I hope," Dream answers with a huff, opening and closing the doors to appease George. "I don't think I could take much more of this." They'd been playing for the past 3 hours, meaning Dream had been accumulating enough sweat in his boxers to stick to his chair much longer than any man should. Physical comfort was a key component for him to stay mellow, and not much could distract him from itchy tags and blistering heat. Not much, that is, besides gaming. "Seeing you is nice, though. Something about your cheerful face distracts me from agony," he confesses, words leaving his mouth before he could attempt to filter. He cringes. "What was that?" "Oh my god, shut up," George says. He sounds embarrassed. Sapnap coos. "Maybe I should stream with my camera on too." Dream laughs, running away from the two of them to ease his sudden spike in nervousness. "That would keep my attention." "Oh yeah, or my stream's not interesting enough for you, Dream," George says, flying after him. "What?" Dream says, feeling a pang of guilt. "What makes you think that? I love your streams." "If you loved them, you wouldn't zone out randomly." "I didn't mean to," Dream whines, which only makes the other two laugh. "I just got distracted by my misery and tried to airbend a breeze in here." "Yeah, right," Sapnap says. "You couldn't have been doing just that for 10 minutes. 10 minutes! Dream repeats, bewildered. He didn't feel it had been that long. He was exploring the map, then clicked onto George's stream to see where it was. And of course, George was smiling and yelling. But somehow so full of energy and spirit, and the hot air started to seep into Dream's soul. "You were AFK for a while," George says. "We were still talking to you though and thought you muted yourself or something. Chat thought it was embarrassing." "Oh," Dream says. "Hold on, did you mean to mute yourself?" Sapnap asks, laughing at his own insinuation. "Little too excited watching George." Both Dream and George explode in disgusting yells. "Good lord, Sapnap." "Sapnap!" George sends a series of hits raining down onto his avatar. "You are so inappropriate off-stream." "You're gross," Dream says with a laugh, but it's feeble and half-hearted. His pulse is rapidly drumming inside his skull. He is not lost to the strange dilemma of why he faded from their call for so long to stare at his Georgeless ceiling. Envy, perhaps, of his friend's ability to be wearing a hoodie in the middle of summer. It's true, though. George's face does get me excited. George groans, making Sapnap and Dream laugh. "Now you're just trying to make me uncomfortable," Flustered, you mean? Dream inputs quickly. Okay, no, I'm sick of you two, George says, immediately exiting their server. Consider this a rage quit. georgenotfound has left the game. Dream sends a frowny face into the chat. No, Georgie, Sapnap pleads. I seriously have to go. I'll talk to you soon, he says. A small sound emitting from the Discord signified he'd left the call. The feeling returns to Dream's chest. It's akin to a cold rush that follows when he removes his hand from a steaming coffee mug. Some nights after their friends have logged off for good, he'll do anything to avoid getting into bed. Twitter, mini-games, coding, creating playlists. His favorite nights, though, are when George wakes up early enough to keep him company. Their conversations radiate with warmth of both Florida night and the English sunrise. So whenever George jokingly becomes angry with him, Dream can't dispel the tiny tremor of worry that he might have gone too far. He doesn't like to mull over the thought of them really fighting. It would terrify him like nothing else. He knows George would call him again tomorrow, and that he isn't nearly as upset as he lets on. Yet he still finds himself carefully watching the dot next to George's name switch from green to pale gray. I think I'm gonna hop off too, Dream says to Sapnap. Alright, see ya. After disconnecting, he swivels around in his chair to face his bed. The dark comforter has been kicked to the floor, sheets askew. The window above his bed is shut tight to keep out the humid air and insects, but he sees the soft orange sheet lights in the distance. He sighs and wishes for rain. He remembers running barefoot on his neighborhood streets as a kid when storms would roll out in the seas, splashing in the gravelly puddles and letting the cool raindrops dampen his hair. That space was always euphoric, a brief temperance from the smoldering air, green palm trees swaying in the wind, the hint of thunder and lightning. But it feels so far from him now, especially in this dreadful weather. He turns off his computer and begrudgingly gets in bed. He's nearly grown accustomed to the dark when his phone vibrates, the notification lighting up the room. He squints. A text from George. I feel like this song is a good way for me to get back at you, it reads. Dream clicks on the link, opening his Spotify to a new Glass Animals song. Heatwaves, he responds, smiling. Very funny. He'd listen to that in the morning. As he sets his phone back down, Dream finds himself warmed by the gesture, even though it was an insult on his behalf. George was a thoughtful guy. Nothing wrong with appreciating that. Not that Dream found it unnerving that interacting with George had a direct correlation with his general contentment and moods. In fact, it wasn't worth the trials and tribulation of overthinking. Settled by his own logic, he allows his body to focus on sleep. He slips in and out of the shadows, occasionally tossing and turning in irritation at the cotton sheets. The fabric clings to his dampened skin up to the moment he sluggishly kicks it away. Something clatters to the floor, but Dream rolls onto his side. Eventually, the night cools enough for him to sink deeper and deeper, until he turns his head from his soft, warm pillow to a cold pile of sand. Confused, he grasps at the foundation beneath him only for rocky grains to slip through his fingers. He sits up rapidly, glancing at the beach now surrounding him. Although the image is narrow, he can tell there is a murky purple lagoon lapping a few feet below him. The moons ripple across its ominous surface. The night is quiet, a taunting breeze brushing the back of his neck and bringing chills down his spine. He looks down at his hands, seeing his bright sleeves pushed halfway up his forearms. Bright green. A sinking feeling begins to rot in his stomach as the familiarity sets in. He's been here before. He shifts his head cautiously, realizing where the shadows at the edge of his vision are coming from, and raises a hand to gently graze the ceramic covering of his face. He doesn't need a mirror to know what the mask looks like. He pulls up his hood, tensing as he anticipates the next subject he'll recognize. At any moment, right behind his right shoulder, a voice will call from the edge of the trees that will say, Dream? He freezes. That's not right. It wasn't supposed to be. George? He asks quietly, turning around with caution. George stands a few feet behind him, goggles perched atop his head and an axe in his hand. He looks around their location, dazed. The starry sky reflects itself on his lenses. He walks across the sand towards Dream slowly. Where are we? Dream considers curling in on himself. but he couldn't help finding the comfort of honesty. My head, I guess. He knows from experience that this place values integrity more than anything, facing it head on, so to speak. He just doesn't know why he'd let George in here. It isn't safe. It's pretty, George says, sitting on the sand next to him. Dream's heart aches faintly at his remark. Once, he thought it was pretty too. He couldn't find the words to tell George that after so many years of frantically slipping on sand, coughing lungfuls of dark water, and running from the woods, it had become a thing of nightmares. He stared at George. Could he feel the memories here? So is this, George gestures around with the axe vaguely, Florida? Dream cracks a smile. Yeah, you finally made it, he teases softly. George's grin is bright enough to make him look away. It's a lagoon I used to come to as a kid. Do you see those? George points at the water. Dream turns his head, and small glowing blobs appear near the shore. Their light blue color is stark against the darkness as they float idly. They're moon jellies, Dream says in disbelief. He'd never seen them here before. George hums in approval. Dream looks at him again, grateful for the mask covering his own features. Pale moonlight makes George's skin glow a soft porcelain, pink lips pressed together in a delicate brushstroke. The word bubbles up from deep in Dream's chest, winding into his bloodstream and landing gracefully in his head. Beautiful. He wants to back away from it, to shove it deep down, but for once, it felt safe here. Safe to admit it to himself without needing an air of humor to skate by on. Here, it wasn't a joke. Why are we here? George asks in a murmur. In his large brown eyes, Dream could see the faded reflection of his sloppy black and white smile. I know why I'm here, Dream says, but I don't know why you are. A brief rustling of leaves and twigs behind him causes him to tense again. It's dangerous here, George. We should go. Why? Don't you want to stay in this memory? Dream ignores the comment and lightly wraps his arm around his shoulder to help him up. George doesn't try to stand. He looks at Dream with a confused frown. Nothing's gonna hurt us when I'm here, he says. Dream feels his face grow hot. Knock it off. This is serious. George looks at him earnestly. I'm being serious. Now that his arm is draped protectively over George's small frame, Dream becomes extremely aware of how close they are. He can sense George's body heat, watch his chest rise and fall, see the goosebumps on his neck. Dream's heart begins to pound. For how long has he wanted to meet him? To hear his voice in person? The fear inside of him slowly begins to ebb away into fondness. The moon jellies rapidly multiply until the lagoon is dappled blue and gleaming. George grins. I told you it was pretty. Because of you, Dream says warmly. Even though George rolls his eyes, he means it. They laugh lightly at each other, sparks blooming as the moment passes. George lets go of his axe and raises his hand to reach for the ceramic mask. Dream freezes as his eyes follow the motion. His hood falls when George runs his fingers gently through his hair. He can't remember the last time he let someone do this. It feels intimate. It feels terrifying. His eyes shut when George finds the metal clasp on the back of his head. He exhales when he feels the weight of the mask drop off his face. The breeze is cold on his cheeks. He can smell the salt water nearby. He opens his eyes and sees twice as many stars as usual. How did you do that? I've never... He looked at George, who is smiling softly. I know honesty is important to you, George says coyly. His hands move gently to touch Dream's cheekbone. Dream reaches and delicately takes George's into his. He feels alive. He leans closer, studying George's eyes until he slips down, further into his soft lips. His breath is trembling. And what if I kissed you right now? He murmurs, heart racing. How honest would that be? George's eyes grow wide. Well, Dream, you... He stammers, giving Dream exactly what he needed. Their movements happen nearly all at once. The inclining of George's jaws, the slide of Dream's hands into his hair, the connection of their lips. The kiss is raw with emotion, and gentle. Hot embers rise from Dream's chest to his face. George's lips surreal against his own as they override his senses. His hand rises to slowly cup George's jaw. Dream pulls his face closer, breath hot, heart stuttering. His nervous energy quickly ebbs into a strong harp of longing and want as he kisses George again, and again, and again. George emits a soft noise, and Dream melts. He can feel George's hands in his hair, then on his neck, then on his chest. His chest rises and falls rapidly as he looks at George's flushed cheeks and his mouth kissed red. Because of him. A low feeling stirs in his stomach, the first flickering of a dangerously hot flame. All of it, all of George, just for him. Dream parts his lips to say something, anything, and promptly wakes up.